Thank you for tuning in. This production is brought to you by The Dead Roots. If you haven't already, visit our website at thedeadroots.org. And to stay up to date or just to have a laugh, check out our Instagram at The Dead Roots.
Hello, universe. Welcome back to Sequoia and the Dead. If you're on our podcast, welcome again. Thank you for tuning in to listen. This is our beautiful microphone, and this is Ira once again for part 2. That's 4, 2. I'm really excited to have you back. Like already, this is awesome. I feel like we got some really, really interesting conversation in our last episode.
Well, thank you. I'm actually really excited to be back. I'm glad, we could keep this rolling. And yeah, I did want to add something onto what we were talking about just real quick before we get into the next question, about so the metaphor I was trying to make at the end of the first part was like, I used to be basically like a closed book even when people would ask. And now I do have sometimes a problem being an open book even when people don't. And that gets me into some trouble now. But I mean, I find it better than being a closed book all around.
Absolutely. And speaking of being a closed book, do you want to reintroduce yourself for our new listeners and new viewers here?
I'm Ira Davis, and I'm 24 years old, and I'm here.
He's here. Well, I think I feel like what you're saying about like being the open book versus the closed book, it gets really hard to break those barriers down because you get so caught up in so much, and especially when the ego is put right in front of it, on top of it, it's like you already have your emotions that really build your character and really train your soul for what I feel like we're kind of here for.
Yeah.
But as soon as like the ego gets in the way, those barriers get even higher. And it's really, really hard to break those down, especially like when it keeps... There's more things coming at you too. It's like you don't have a pause to like really spend that time.
Well, and that's because how like life is, it's ever changing and it's non-stopping. And I definitely agree with you. Like, when you have a very high ego, which was a problem I did used to have, when you have like an extremely high ego, you should always have like a little bit of one,
Oh, absolutely.
But when you have an extremely high one, it really gets in the way of you being able to grow as a person and being able to take these things that are coming at you, get the experience and let them go. And, being able, like I said, just to kind of move forward in life without, constant like regret or fear, or, whatever ails you. Everybody has their own thing.
Yeah, for sure. Are you familiar with, I believe it's Freud's idea of the egos, plural?
Freud sounds familiar. I feel like I know Freud, but I haven't heard this now.
I'm hoping that it is Freud. I'm going to have to fact check that later. I'm pretty sure it is. But he has this idea that there is the ego, the superego, and the id.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard like about the ego and the id. I've heard that theory.
So I'm probably having them mixed up right now because it's been a long time since I last read that. But I believe the id is like who you are. Like that's kind of like what I was saying with all the emotions that really develop your soul and everything like that. Like that would be your id. That's who you are. Deep down what's right versus wrong.
Yeah.
To you.
And then there's the ego, which is, like what you say and what you do, how you act, no matter if your id is, that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
and I think the super ego, if I'm not mistaken, is like your reaction to sometimes those external stimuli, like what really lashes out. Like when you end up getting in that state of cognitive dissonance where you either get super stubborn and you're like, no. And like, you're not protecting anything really because you're not protecting the truth. You're not protecting the honesty, but you're protecting yourself. Like you become like in a defense mode, like the fight or flight or something like that. And it's crazy how much the ego can do that because as soon as you let that take over, even for a fraction of a second, like mistakes get made and that wears on your ego more and develops those barriers even higher. You're not going to want to like break those down.
And that's kind of like what I meant, when I was saying earlier, like not being able to progress forward because if you're, constantly, like with normal conversations or something, if you're saying things that people or you think people are going to want to hear, you're probably not going to make friends with the people that you actually want to be friends with. Because you're not going to be actually seeing eye to eye.
Well, we're seeing that like
their own view, and you have your own view deep down, but that's not the view that you shared with them, and they think that you have their same view.
It's like the three different perspectives. There's like your perspective, the other's perspective, and then the truth. And it's like no one really knows what the truth is because the experiences, realities are so different in those like flesh vehicles, I guess. However you want to say that.
We're all going through our own paths in life. Like, something that I've experienced, you probably have never experienced. Something that you've never experienced, I probably haven't experienced.
Yeah. And that's kind of what makes it so beautiful, though, because you never know what you're going to learn about someone until you really, truly see that human value. Like something I really makes me super happy to see in the world, like one of those super little things is when you see someone like be human and like maybe you see them at a buffet and there's like desserts or something and they see their like favorite cookie and you just see their like eyes light up and they get really excited.
I know.
And
what you're talking about.
See that little moment of like, oh, you can see the child in them.
Yeah.
I love that. I don't care if like my first impression of them was like, ooh, you kind of look like an asshole. Like as if they do that, I'm like, oh,
but you're
like me.
There's
like
a sweetheart in that asshole.
Exactly. Or like maybe that asshole persona came from a lot of trauma. Like I really see like a lot more depth in individuals when I see something like that. And that was actually brought up in an amazing book I read. I think it was called like The Path to Joy or something like that. It's by the Dalai Lama. And he has these little moments. So what he said about when he does meetings, he hosts meetings, he actually orders a tray of desserts for his meetings, even if they're large corporate people or whatever, because what he likes to see is someone light up with that exact joy when they have a cookie or something, or maybe it's like a crumbly cookie and that you see them like drop it on themselves or something, and it's just like they have a little moment of like you just see like that's no longer some big corporate shark.
Yeah,
that's some dude who really likes a chocolate chip cookie, just like me. Like like it's those little things. It gives you
something like little things to like connect with.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your favorite fucking, like your favorite thing is cookies. Like, I fucking love cookies. Like, I can relate to you.
It's interesting. I'm seeing a huge duality here because we're talking so much about how heavy those walls can go up. But I feel like on the flip side now, we're talking about how easily those walls can come down in some ways.
Yeah.
And that seems to be playing a lot more on like the super ego because your reaction actually shifts because the experience that you're hosting. Because you can be in control of that situation by providing a cookie. Like, there's like little things you can do to host an environment to see that human.
And I like how you mentioned that as like hosting an environment. And I think that like, we definitely don't do that enough. But I believe like a lot of people wouldn't see, like their coworkers as bad or, like people they see on the side of the street if like that was kind of more readily around for like everybody. But it's not. So, ego up and we move on through our lives. But like you were saying, it is just as easy to put an ego up as it is to break it down. And in those moments, you kind of see like how people really are, that they're just regular
like
human
soul.
beings.
You see their id.
Yeah, you see their id.
You see their id. If my original facts were correct.
Freud.
Facts.
Freud. You still got to look that up.
Oh, yeah. I do have another question for you here.
Alrighty.
Have you ever thought about how long you would like to live?
I have on multiple occasions. At first, like when I'd say like honestly, when I was like a lot younger, like 12 to 14-ish, seeing like how frugal life was because I had already lost my dad, my grandpa, 2 of my cousins at that point. No, 1 of my cousins at that point. So I had already kind of been to 3 funerals, saw 2 of them die in their deathbeds. Well, not actually see them die, but like seen them a couple of days before they would pass. I realized that, life is completely fleeting. There's nothing we can really do about that. That's just, it's going to happen to everybody. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking like, well, when would I want it to happen? Obviously. And I feel like that's a common thought for people who go through that. And at first, like when I was younger, I didn't really have a scale of like the human expectancy. So I was like, I'll die at 40, 40, 45. That seems about a ripe old age to die. And like, that's what I thought, like, until I was about 18, 19, and I started getting into nursing, and I realized, wow, like one of my very first patients, very cognitive woman. She was just physically frail, but very cognitive woman, all there, very sweet, very wise. She made me realize, holy shit, you can live to 94 and still live a relatively completely normal life. Like she didn't even need medical care for like physical care until she turned 92. So she was still walking around. She was still doing her own thing. Like she could still go to, she used to play bridge night every night and stuff like that. And like, yeah, I actually met her bridge club because when she did become impaired, her bridge partners actually, they were really good friends at that time. So they all started agreeing to have bridge at her house. So I actually met her bridge friends too.
That's
and
so cool.
One of them was actually, again, if we're going to old age and functioning, one of them was a 96-year-old who cognitively fully there, physically fully healthy. Just and
That's
that
amazing.
definitely changed my mind about that. And I'm like, you know what? I would like to live a little bit longer than that. I don't think I would like to live that long. And I've kind of set my sights on, well, if I die, I die. I can't control that. But if I had to choose how long I would live, I would say probably anywhere between the ranges of 60 and 75. Just because I don't know how my body would work, and I wouldn't want to live life in like a dementia state, honestly, like a full blown dementia state. I wouldn't want to live life constantly just forgetting everything that happens. I would like to experience it and have that.
Absolutely.
But on the flip side, I know there are plenty of people who have are in middle and old age. I know somebody who's I think he's 52 now, and he's already developed dementia. So I know it can happen a lot like sooner than that, but it's not as common. But they can still live like rich and fulfilling lives, for sure. But it's just I wouldn't want to do that myself. Or like if I ever got like majorly physically like impaired, like I've had this talk with my mom before. If I become a vegetable, no physical workings, no neurological workings. My brain's basically just a baked potato. If I ever become like that, pull the plug, let me go. I know it'll be hard for the people in my life to do that because they want me to still be there, but that would be like my want for that. I wouldn't want to live life because that's not living. That's existing, in my opinion.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to the next question, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course.
Have you ever seen a body or genuine remains?
I did have to see a body, but that wasn't really it wasn't really that weird because it was in a hospital setting. My mom and I went down to like check on my dad, and we found out that he had passed away literally like 3 hours before. So they allowed us to go down and see him one last time in the morgatory, I think it's called, where they keep the dead bodies. I don't know what it's called.
Morgue?
Yeah, morgue. I knew it was something like that. But yeah, they allowed us to go down and see him. So that was nice. He still had on his wedding ring, even though they got divorced like 3 years prior. But he still had on my mom's wedding ring. That's what made her really cry. Like, I remember that moment.
It's heart-wrenching.
Yeah, especially for her, like, even, and she's always told us this, and I don't think it's because, we're our father's kids. I don't think she ever told us this because of that. But my mom always told us, ever since the day that he left, she still loves him. She will forgive him as long as he gets his shit together. He never did, but she genuinely, like, I didn't believe it for a long time, and then I saw that, I was like, damn, she really does still love him. So, yeah, it was just kind of crazy. Like, that was her soulmate, and I got to see somebody in the moments when they realize their soulmate isn't there anymore, which is also just heart-wrenching. Like, I can't imagine if that would happen to me.
That's a really incredible feeling. I could imagine, like,
yeah,
because at the same time she was aware that she had someone out there. That's a huge feeling to be valued. Like, not that many people get loved in a way with that much dedication.
Yeah.
Even if it goes unknowing, like that's...
Yeah, and she had no clue. She honestly thought that he pawned the ring. I remember him or her telling me that at one point, like when I was younger, because I asked like, well, if you guys are divorced now, like, where's his wedding ring? Or like, why are you still wearing your wedding ring? And she's like, I still wear my wedding ring because I still love him. And she thought that he had pawned his, but no, like I said, we saw it on his body because they had his hands up like this, like they do with normal bodies. But yeah, like that, it brought her both like tears of sadness and tears of joy at the same time. So it's got to be a really complex thing to go through. Like I said, I can't even imagine. But yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just skip that question then.
No, don't skip any questions. You're good. Or you don't have to if you don't want to.
Oh, I'll just go to this one. Do you think that bodies or human remains in another sense? I don't want you to think too personally here.
No, you're good.
Do you think that is something to be viewed as like gross or grotesque?
No,
risque?
not at all. Honestly, I think it's one of the most natural states you can see a human in, because when you think about it, like, I think there are two most natural states to see a human in, and that's seeing an actual birth and seeing a corpse. Because those are the two vital parts of life.
Yeah, they're
that's
very
when you're coming in. That's when you're
states.
leaving.
Yeah.
So like I watched my aunt's birth, and like
my gosh.
Yeah, she let me come in on that because she wanted my sister to watch because they've always been really close, and so she wanted my mom to watch her sister. And she's like, do you want to see a birth? And like I had told my mom before, like a couple years before, I was like, I'm curious how birth like actually looks like. And she's like, would you like to see a birth? And I'm like, brace myself. I've heard the stories, but yes, I'd like to see a birth. And my aunt was cool with that. So yeah, I got to see my what's her name? I always mess it up. Angelica or Angelina. I can never remember it. I'm sorry if you're watching. I love you, baby cousin. But yeah, I got to see her birth, and well, she probably won't be watching. She's like 7 years old right now.
So the internet is very widespread.
Yeah, that's true. And now people are getting phones at younger ages too.
Yeah.
So
I do have this labeled as explicit content, but that doesn't mean anything anymore.
It really doesn't. I was, like I said, no censorship in my house personally. So I was watching stuff and listening to stuff like this way before my time, and I'm pretty sure other kids did too.
Oh my god. Yeah. I don't know.
It's one of those, like, you tell them not to do something, they're gonna do it.
You can't tell them not to do it, because then they're gonna be more inclined to do it.
They're gonna be like, like, should I rebel now?
Is that tonight thing? Am I too tired to do that tonight?
Like, let me think about it. I'll put it on the schedule. I'll make some room for it. Next week sounds good. Yeah.
Next week sounds good, right? Procrastination Nation.
I feel that too hard.
Dude, same.
I finally actually, literally today, I got off my ass and I actually cleaned my room. Fully cleaned my room, like all my trash is gone. I did all my dishes, and I did all my laundry. And I put away all my laundry. Like I folded it all.
Quiet fist bump.
Right?
Hell yeah.
So I was super productive today, but I know damn well when I get back home after we're done with this, I'm gonna go like back, and I still haven't put my sheets or my bed coverings on or anything like that. I know damn well when I go back, I'm gonna just throw that on the floor and I'm gonna plop my ass on my bed. I know I'm gonna do it.
I totally understand those feels so much.
Because it's like I'm almost there. It's like being at 99% of the game and then just like deciding to
quit.
Yeah, just deciding to uninstall it just because like you're like, I can't wait for this last percent. But yeah, I felt pretty good about that today, which was like the first time I've been productive in so long.
Oh my gosh. Productivity is like
other than work, obviously, it's so
much
hard.
Motivation.
It really does.
So
like
much.
my kryptonite is definitely laundry. Like I can do dishes, I can do trash, I can keep up on those things. Those are easy. laundry is such a bitch though. Like I never want to. I don't even want to like do my laundry because I know that's like, oh, I gotta time it, then I gotta go put it in the dryer. Like I know that sounds so fucking lazy.
No, my clean clothes are still sitting in the dryer. They've been there for like 3 days.
Oh no,
they're clean, they're dried, they're done. I'm not ready yet.
I don't want to get it.
Yep,
because the second you put it in here, you're gonna be like, now I gotta deal with this.
Exactly, and I'm making a rule that I can't put my laundry on the chair anymore, so I have to handle it so I can read more books.
See, I had like all my laundry piled on my bed, so it finally got to the point. Like I woke up this morning and I was like, literally, like it fell on top of me. So I was like, I got my blanket off, and my blanket I pull off the opposite way from my laundry mountain. So I pulled my blanket off, and then it just started like curling onto me, and I'm like, Jesus! And I look over it, I'm like, I gotta fucking do something about you. I have to. Today's the day.
It's become the full-blown laundry monster. Oh my gosh.
Seriously. It was like crawling up my walls too. Like I was literally just stacking as much as I could. It was probably like I don't know, like 4 or 5 maybe loads worth. It's a lot of laundry.
Oh my god!
Like they were all clean. I just didn't want to fold them.
Yeah, my entire chair was completely covered. I'm gonna get back to this next question, though. Like talking about laundry. I'm really curious to know if you dream about people you've lost.
That's a difficult question to answer. Okay. Do you think we can actually skip that question? Absolutely. And I will go ahead and give context for the viewers. The reason why is I don't really dream anymore. Okay. I don't know why. If I do dream, I don't remember anything. Like not even glimpses or like small tidbits or anything. To the most of my knowledge, I feel like I haven't had a dream in forever. On that subject, I have had one dream that's recurring. And it doesn't involve anybody else, but it's more like a really trippy dream. Like it starts as quickly as it ends. I walk through a meadow. No one else is in the meadow. I walk through a meadow. There's trees way off in the distance, and then the trees start melting into sand and enveloping the meadow, and now I'm in a desert. And it literally, it's just boom, boom, that's it, and then that's all I remember of it.
I don't really know why. Interesting.
Yeah. It's just a weird dream I have, but that's like the only dream I've had, and it's like recurring. It happened maybe once every couple of months, but that's the only dream I can actually like remember. And it might say something into the effect of like, maybe I need to figure out what that dream is to actually start focusing on other dreams. I don't know. That's the theory I have for it right now.
Well, you got to do an experiment if you're ever going to know, you know?
Yeah, true. I mean, I've been trying to like figure out the meaning, but the only thing I can think of is like breaking down my like boundaries and getting in a new location, like mentally. And that's what I've been trying to do with like therapy. And like I was said, used to be a closed book, now I'm an open book. Like I've been trying to genuinely like change myself, like for the better.
Takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of time too. I've been trying to do this for it's about a 3-year process now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That shows a lot of dedication.
Yeah. Wish I can put that dedication into my alcohol problem, but that's a whole other thing.
One step at a time.
One step at a time.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, if we can. Yeah, I just wanted to skip that question because I wouldn't be able to give you anything on that.
Well, it's definitely interesting either way.
How do you ask for help when you need it most? Be sure to comment your answer on our Instagram page at The Dead Roots. We at The Dead Roots want to make sure everyone is comfortable on our platform. Make sure to be kind and considerate to others who use our platform as well. And as always, have fun. Thank you so much and stay rooted.
Do you miss the people you've lost more during good times or more during times of struggle?
I guess it depends on who you're talking about. That's weird to answer too. I only really miss people in the sense of I miss the times that I spent with them. So like I miss the times when like I was with my dad and I was a kid and like we were building the fence and like in the backyard that we used to have, we completely redid and built the fence and I would help him, hold the board down while he, cuts it and stuff like that. And he would hammer it up and he would have me hold the plank up against it while he's hammering it in. I miss those moments because like it's like those are really the only moments that I had with him. And then like, you know, my cousin, I didn't really know him that much. We weren't extremely close. Well, both my cousins we weren't really close with, but I knew a lot more about the second cousin that died, Xavier. But yeah, that's a weird question to ask. So I guess I don't miss him in times specifically. I just like any time that I do start missing him, I just start thinking about, oh my God, I'm stupid. I just started realizing what the question you asked was.
Don't ever say you're stupid.
We'll just cut that out. So I would say that I do miss the people that have left my life more in times of sorrow, mainly because they brought me a lot of joyful memories and experiences. Like I had a lot of good times with them. So yeah, when I do miss them, it's mostly times when I'm down or I'm, I feel like everybody does this. Maybe it's just me, but like you're just wishing you could be like a kid again or back in your teens or, when life was a little more straightforward or, not as much stuff has happened and you didn't think so differently about things that you do now, like I used to think way differently about like, honestly, really everything like drugs, mortality, other people in general, other countries and stuff. I used to think way differently about other countries. Like I didn't realize everywhere is a lot more in worse shape than I thought. So, but yeah, like when you don't know that stuff, that's the kind of like time that I wish I was in when I'm sad and I'm thinking about, my deceased. I don't know how to really say it. My dead people. But yeah, that's basically it. I'm sorry, I completely didn't know what I was talking about at first.
No, I really like that both sides of that answer. Like,
oh, gotcha.
I really like the perspective that you put onto it. You gave it a lot more depth.
Oh, did I? Yeah. I thought I was just messing up the question.
No, not at all. It was great. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a close call with death personally?
Yes. So there was one time not too long ago. I didn't necessarily intentionally do it, but I didn't stop myself from doing it. I went ahead and took a good handful of pills. I'm not going to disclose what, but I took a good handful of pills and I drank a lot. And I just went to bed. And I was hoping just to fade off in my sleep, basically. And I woke up and realized, holy shit, I just coughed up a bunch of blood while I was sleeping because it was just all over my fucking pillow. I need to go to the hospital because that was my first reaction to do. Like I said, I wasn't necessarily trying to, like, per se kill myself. It was more or less, I did and I didn't do anything to stop myself from it. So that was my close encounter. Other than that, I haven't really had any, like, close encounters personally with that.
Well, that's really intense. Would you say you had, like, any sort of out-of-body experience during that time?
No, not really. If I remember correctly, I just kind of like went to sleep, another kind of like time of not dreaming, and then woke up, and that was basically it. I did, like, for some reason, like as soon as I woke up, I didn't want to die anymore, and the night before, I know I was like really depressed. Like I'm very much against suicide, but I knew I was really depressed the night before. That's why I say like I didn't intentionally do it. It just kind of happened.
Well, what do you mean you're against suicide? I'm just curious what you're...
There's multiple ways in the sense that I'm against suicide. I believe it's very selfish for the people around you and, for yourself, because you have a lot more time that you have in this world. And to take your own time away, that's the ego, like we were talking about. That's not what you truly want, because if you actually let yourself just kind of let go of, everything you're putting your ego up against, then you'll be able to accept things and, like I said, move forward. And I feel like a lot of us kind of bottle stuff up, block stuff. I know even now I still bottle stuff up, but we kind of bottle stuff up and block stuff. And that, that makes it selfish to ourselves. We're not giving ourselves more credit than we're owed, Like we sometimes tend to think like, and I feel like everybody's had this thought at one point or another, like, like the world would just be better if I wasn't here. Maybe that's just me.
No,
But,
I understand that.
Like that's a selfish way of thinking about it. Like that's a selfish way of you thinking about yourself in a sense.
Well, what do you think about assisted suicide?
I feel like in cases of like medical stuff, I fully agree with it in those cases.
Do you have any age restrictions on that at all? Or do you think it should be anyone terminal who understands the consequence?
Anyone terminal who actually gets it. And, I feel like a lot of, and I hate to say this, but I've had this conversation before and this was brought up in that conversation. Terminally ill cancer children. I think they should fully have the right, I think parents should be fully honest with them about mortality and fully explain that. But I think most children who are in that situation do develop the understanding of it. And I think that they should be given that choice. If they are completely terminal, like there's nothing they can do, I think they should be given that choice if they wanted to. And that's a hard subject to, obviously, because we're talking about children and shit. But it's not like they're
not ignorant to that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're not ignorant to the fact. It might be a decision they might not want to do. And there might be something that they say, hey, like, I hurt every day. I don't want to be here. Like, I know I'm not going to be here for longer. Like, let me go. Sorry, mom and pop, like I love you, but just let me go. Kind of one of those things. So
there's a lot of discussion actually out about that right now between NCBI and something called, I think it's like Your Death, Your Choice or something like that. It's like a blog of some sort that talks about all of like
I feel like I've heard of that.
All of the laws and discussions going on around assisted suicide, because I have actually been asked personally by 2 individuals to guide their transition. And I have accepted on both occasions because of my very close relationship with Mother Death. I have been very curious to see what the discussion is about that, especially when it comes to children. And there's a couple of countries, I believe Norway and Sweden are actually up there with the processing of legalization. And they ask a couple really good questions because they do a mental check for anyone. It doesn't matter age, whatnot. Okay. If they seem cognitively understanding of the consequence. And so one of the questions that I really thought was fascinating for the children under 12, I believe the question was for, they asked, where do you go when you die?
Ooh, that is a good question to ask, actually.
I thought that was absolutely fascinating because my personal experience with death and having that out-of-body experience and those experiences after, I feel like there is a place that we go. But I think that's really dependent on your religion and your belief system. If you have any like predisposing concerns, if you are just plain logical and you think nothing else but what's proven could be factual,
and
which is a little
I honestly agree with you on that. Like, to the point to where I'm just gonna kind of like dumb it down because I can't say it as elegantly as you, but I believe you go where you want to go, or where you see yourself going. Like if you are Christian and you believe that you are a good Christian and you are, have no doubts about that, then, you die, you go to your own heaven. You go to what you see as heaven. If you're Christian and you have doubts about, if you are worthy or whatever, and you subconsciously decide that you should go to hell, you'll go to your version of hell. Like things like that. Like I definitely think it would be like that would make the most sense in my opinion. Yeah.
I completely agree with you on that. Like I feel like we create so much of our own reality in our waking and living life that I don't think that stops. And I'm not just saying that like if you are thoroughly Christian, let's just say, no disrespect intended.
Yeah.
if you thoroughly believe that there is no reincarnation, no this, no that, but you haven't really considered your place in it, like, I don't think that they're not going to go anywhere.
Just kind of like,
but at the same time,
drift.
If they believed that they were going to heaven, that I don't think they're going to walk up and meet Jesus and God and be like, yo, saw dude, like, been a minute, like, you know.
Yeah, like, it's going to be a whole different experience for, like, every single person.
Exactly.
It's going to be a whole different experience.
But we're not
like,
going to be able
like
to experience those tactile senses the same, you know.
What do you mean by that?
You won't have hands. You won't have your nose and your sensory glands. You won't have your eyes. The way that you will perceive that time and space won't be conceivable to us. That's part of the reason why I really like psychedelics, because having experienced that full out of body, and I remember very, very, very vaguely what it felt like to not be there. It was where I wanted to go so badly at that time that it's kind of hard to mimic that level of freedom in a sense. And so psychedelics actually brings me back into my body and reminding myself, like, it's okay to be here. It is safe
kind of
to work on yourself.
Yeah.
Bit. So by experiencing a little bit dose of that, like, freedom that I felt, where it's just that lucid, the shapes and colors of space, the darkness, the weightlessness, like all of these little
like things that we would never be able to,
with psychedelics. Like, that's, I feel like, as close as you can get to interacting like that, because you don't.
Yeah.
You can, you know, like the BoJack Horseman thing, like shapes and colors and like, like, I feel like that's what that is, because when you're in that moment, like, I like to use psychedelics more when I'm actually in a bad place, which I do not advise. I know you have to be very, very aware of your own headspace, how you work, what your past traumas are, how you process those things. That is completely independent. My personal experience is I feel a lot better when I take it when I'm upset or when I'm angry or when I'm falling into like a bipolar spiral or something, that I've been almost 4 years off of my bipolar medication since I've actually started microdosing and using mushrooms more regularly.
Wow.
Because
and it's working.
It's working for me and my body. Yeah.
Okay.
It helps me stop the spiral, because as soon as I'm feeling that angst and that anger, I remind myself that's my ego. There's nothing really, I'm not being physically harmed here.
Yeah.
I'm not being emotionally abused here. I am physically and emotionally safe in this space. So I take some psychedelics and can reunite myself with my place in my body here, with my time and space in my home, in my life, in my jobs, in my intellect. Like, it reconnects me so much, because I feel that feeling of that weightlessness, that freedom. And I remind myself I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
And that's how I use that.
Okay. And I'm kind of glad you brought up the bipolar, which I didn't know you were, but I'm glad you brought up the bipolar disorder, because I have dissociative disorder. So like, and that's kind of how hallucinogens are for me. Like, that's why I never had an out of body experience, is because when I am on hallucinogens, any of them that I've taken, it's not so much as it's basically me talking to my dissociative me, in a sense. And it's like, I can ground myself, I can bring those two together and like kind of like connect them in that moment, and be able to be like, you know what, like, you're okay to exist, you are here, make the most of it, you know, like whatever I have to say to myself. It's just a way for me to actually, like kind of talk to that other side of myself and keep myself here. So like I definitely
it's
get
kind of
that.
like a little hug from the universe. It's just like you're there, like stressed and like, oh my god, I know what's going on, and then the universe is like, hi honey, and just like wraps you up in its warm, colorful colors and shapes and colors and things.
It's like,
I love that BoJack Horseman thing. It's so funny.
It is.
Yeah.
That's such a, like, on a note on that show, I really liked how they dealt with like all the topics that they went through.
Oh
they
my
went
gosh.
They went through a lot of different topics, like alcoholism, suicide, depression, drug addiction. They went through so many topics, and I think they handled the entire show beautifully. Like they did it a lot of credit, for sure.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like, I really like these shows that kind of challenge this idea of like space and time and reality and the life itself, the ups and downs of all of it, because it's so raw.
I do too.
And cartoons, you can portray that in such a different way than you can with live action. So like BoJack Horseman and like Midnight Gospel and like even Rick and Morty. Like Rick and Morty, like the little like wubba lubba lub dub scene, like as much as like that's goofy, whatever, but it's like he's asking for help. Like that, like I don't know, that moment like really resonated with me because like I do a lot of these like little things where I'm like actually asking for help, but I don't do it in a way that's so direct that people know.
Yeah.
And so like I feel that like wubba lubba lub dub I do. I even have a wubba lubba lub dub flask. Like I have literally a Rick and Morty wubba lubba lub dub flask. Like it's my shit. I got problems, but we all do.
I can completely get that. Like, I definitely think, like with cartoons, especially, even though, because there are cartoons for kids, there's, anime for everybody.
Completely.
And then there's those adult cartoons where they actually tackle like honestly, even to the point of like American Dad and Family Guy and stuff like that. Even though it's all supposed to be jokes and everything, the jokes that they're making and the things that they're pointing out are actual like real things that like everybody puts thought into, but nobody really talks about it, or they don't recognize it like as it's happening. And like same with like the wubba lubba dub dub with Rick. He's crying out for help, and no one knows the wiser. Completely. Because it's like that, they're viewing it from a different reality as him. Like he has his own mind state, his own personality, his own view on everything, and not a lot of people have that, but at the same time, when you do have that, it's still hard to be able to be like, oh, okay, I know exactly what he means, because you don't.
Yeah, it's really hard to follow that train sometimes to the end of it, like and it's nice to get back on the rails with that, like to actually get your thought process in mind, and having those little notes in like cartoon format is like kind of like a little, like again, like a little universe from the hug. Like we know how you feel, but I do have to say we are running out of time yet again. I don't know. Maybe we'll have a part 3 later on. Like you should definitely come back. This is great talking with you, man.
I really wanted to get through more questions. I'm so sorry. We still haven't gotten through that many.
Don't apologize. I love this conversation. So I just want to thank our listeners and our lovely viewers. I am so excited that you guys tuned in for this part 2. Maybe stay tuned for part 3. Be sure to check the description in the box for a bunch of the resources and the books that I mentioned throughout the podcast and video. And we'll see you next time. Live spicy.
See you next time.